If they can't handle an opposing viewpoint, it's a negative reflection on them and not you.
Hello, humans. I wanted to come to you with another format that will be more casual and help us get to know each other more a little bit. I don't mean for people to get hurt, but if you get hurt by it, ask yourself why. I had like a discussion a couple days ago with people, and an incident happened, and I wanted to share that with you because I feel like when it happened, I didn't quite rationalize it as like a microaggression. But with time, I understood that it was one, and also it reminded me of so many other incidents that I've had before. And I don't think that they were incidents, they were just microaggressions. I don't like to call microaggressions incidents or just like aggressions in general as like incidents because it kind of like defeats the purpose. It's not my fault if you're triggered and cannot communicate it properly. It's an incident for you, not for me. So it was like a bunch of white people, and I was the only unambiguously black person, dark skin, like femme. And there was another woman who was biracial and I believe grew more in like a white environment. Let's just say it like that. And we had like a discussion on a show that my friend invited me to watch because she played in the show. And the show in itself is not like it has a lot of success, as in it has a lot of clout, a lot of people go and like watch it. And I don't know, I felt like when people kind of like watch it and just promote it, they want to make sure that black women can identify with it, which I find interesting because the person who made the show is more similar to the persons who I'm talking to at the moment than me. We don't have the same experience, but when I watched the show, I remember that first I was being very triggered by many things that were being told. I felt that the way they were being executed was kind of like insensitive and immature. Um, and let me tell you, like I'm someone who watched the Boondocks in South Park just for laughs. Like I don't have an issue with like overly sensitive content. It just has to do with the way you deliver. I think that if it comes with like some type of critic, yes, you can then call it political. But if you want to put it in my mouth and have no critic, don't even share the same point of view as I do, cannot really share the experiences that I've had, then why are you using my name for it? And that was my core issue, I believe. So after the show, the author was there, and I went to her. I was like, I can't tell you that I enjoyed the show because I don't understand who you made it for. Did you do it because you wanted white people to be shocked and be like, "Oh my God, we're so racist," or was it more internal, emotional, or was it more about like attention? Because some of the scenes were pretty good. I hear that people who are biracial sometimes like they have a hard time really knowing where they belong, and they also have those lamentations when it comes to their own like history. But other moments were very blatantly colorist, featurist. I feel like in a way it was enabling it. And what I mean by enabling it was that white people, when you expose them to that type of behavior with only like the feeling of guilt without really giving them like context to reflect on, well, they don't really get they won't get the point. They won't see the issue most times. People were having a blast. White people were having a blast. Some of them were like kind of shocked, kind of like feeling guilty and everything, but guilt is not going to solve a thing. And when it comes to racism, I feel like when you put yourself in white people's shoes, guilt is not the core feeling that should be activated when you want them to realize how racism is bad and how hurtful it is. Because then it would just trigger like a trauma response as well. And that would be racism. Again, it would just be racism. And you have so many people who are like on stage shouting like very racist names, making like very, dark skin poop type of associations and jokes. It was maybe more triggering than anything. I love people criticizing society with satirical content. The person in front of me at that party where I was like having a discussion, I saw that she was getting triggered by what I said. And instead of asking me questions, which is something that I truly hate, she then tried to tell me, yo, but it's just your opinion. I never say that it's not anything other than that. And you have a problem with it because you're feeling triggered and you feel threatened by that. If you want to position yourself in a political fight, you have to be very precise. If you're not precise, then you're useless. You're cooning to me. People who often are cooning, they know what they're doing. They know that it's not something that elevates them. They know that they're playing clouds. Look at Chris Rock. Look at Chris Rock. Now, when I think back to what happened and when I used the word coon, she was like feeling triggered because she never really understood how people who are within the Black community, when they call each other by that name and when they're like politically sensitive and aware, they mean something. Like there's a meaning behind that. A coon is literally someone you can't trust because they will always be a threat for you. Like that a coon is a threat, and on the other hand is not a threat per se. They're a threat to themselves, yes, but not a threat for the others.
The coon consciously sells out his people. The Negro does it out of ignorance. I can work with a Negro. Never trust the coon.
So instead of like, again, asking me questions, she was being more and more defensive. Mind you, I never talked about her. I never even mentioned her name in my critic, like to that person I was talking to. She literally, because she identified so much with the play and the way that it was rendered, that she had like an issue with me criticizing it. And so that's why I said, you can't be mad at me for criticizing something. With time passing, I understood how much that person is not safe for me. When I went back home, I thought again about that. And I remember that within like the whole discussion, I said stuff like, Irish people are not Black. And I mean it. I think I need to teach you why that mindset is very harmful to people who are unambiguously Black. I remember, for example, another thing that was similar when I told a biracial person that they were biracial and not Black. That person is more than light skin. Their hair are not kinky. They don't have coils. They don't have Betty beads. They don't have all those things. Their features looks racially ambiguous because they are racially ambiguous. That person today is seen as a Black person by some of the community that tends to also, again, give a lot of space to racially ambiguous biracial women in the community and call them Black. Because what I noticed on TikTok is that I follow a lot of Black and ambiguously Black women, and they literally have so much less support and have such a niche. I feel like most girls who interact with those women are maybe like Asian women who are not Black and do not identify as any close to Black, but still are interested in being more aware and wary of their actions and how it can harm Black women. When I see that person, I've seen them featured on many Black outlets because they started a trend, I believe. Like they ask a question and people have to answer. And I remember that person literally had people in her comments like saying, "You're not Black," and they would make a video saying that's not true. Look at my hair. You think that when I go in the room, people think that I'm white, and people were like, you're not Black still. It's not because you're not white that you're Black. And if you think that that's how it works, then your vision and your impression of what is racism is flawed as I truly recommend let's touch some grass, like literally. And I remember that I wrote a comment and I was like, yeah, I don't believe you're Black as well because you just don't look Black, and there's nothing wrong with that. You just should understand that that's very harmful what you're doing, because then you're participating in the erasure of Black women, like an ambiguously Black woman. And that person blocked me. Like, they blocked me in the blink of an eye. And I'm like,
side eye. Side eye.
There are many, many channels on this platform that talk about these things. I mentioned Mayowa's World before, but there's also Paris Milan, Chrissy. All those women are just amazing, and I'll put their links in the description box as well. I'm done talking about like the story now. I really want to tell more about like the depth of all those words that I've used before and why they matter and why they should be taken more seriously. And this would be the one and only time I do that. That's all you will get from me for free. Understand that first and foremost, race is typical. I don't care how you feel. I don't care about your culture. I don't care about the country you come from. I really do not care. If you don't look a certain way, I won't treat you that way. It's simple. That is race. And it's that basic, but it's also that absurd and that dangerous. What I want you all to understand is that because of what we've gone through as a people all around the world, I believe sincerely that the Black community is one of the most racist ones. And the position that we have in this ladder, in this hierarchy of racism, is what makes our expression of racism so particular and so unique. However, you can still see different manifestations in other communities as well when it comes to self-hatred, like racist self-hatred. I used to make polls on Instagram where I asked people, what is the most racist thing that you've done? Because most people who follow me are either like Black or North African. I would not get any response when I tried to somehow like just talk about different incidents, like expressions of racism that we do as people, even with ourselves. Crickets. So when I'm saying Black people, I would like for people to understand that it's Black people as a whole, like people who look Black, not specifically in America. The reason why I'm so confident in saying that it's all around the world is because you see the same type of incidents happening everywhere. You see same variants of like those different things, expressions of racism, branches of racism in every community since like we experienced what is slavery, and since capitalism is what we identify as our system, but it's not our system if you really look at it. And that kind of bothers me to then like only hear that to have that possibility that people really think that there cannot be racist because of the color of the skin. I understand that. However, I would like to debate it. And I think that this video to me was the perfect motivation for that. What I call branches of racism. I'm talking about texturism, featureism, colorism, all those things that had to do with individual parts from someone's phenotype being projected onto like, European white standards, like, and brought back into our consciousness. To me, racism and capitalism don't stand side by side. Capitalism stands first. Racism is like comes after as a way to justify capitalism, but they're still linked, but there's still like a progression. And then you have all those branches with certain stuff that I don't know in the bit in between that represent texturism, featureism, colorism. I can tell you the definitions. When it comes to texturism, is the discrimination of people who literally have hair closer to what is deemed as Black, which is kinky hair. They don't call it curly, they call it kinky, they call it coily sometimes. There are manifestations to that. It depends, like different expressions depending on the people that you had in your life that served as models. It depends on like the number of bigoted comments you've heard and somehow normalized throughout your life. It depends on all those things. And it's the same thing with the rest of the isms I'm going to talk about. So next we have featureism. If you're occupying a white space or you're growing up in a white space, you often notice that people who have like bigger lips, people who have bigger hips, bigger features in general are bullied. If you experience featureism, you might internalize some of it and so project it onto other people as well without even realizing. And then that leads us to what we call colorism. If you're seeing someone down the street and you have like someone not too far away from you, like you can still see them, they are, I don't know, like committing a crime, your peripheral vision will only see the colors. And so if like the police is talking to you, let's just say that the person who was like attacked was brown, like darker than the person who actually committed the crime. automatically you only being able to justify, to say there were this skin color and this skin color, you not really see what happened, will still like put the blame on like the darker person. Why? Because the police would assume it's a system, it's part of a system. If you experience colorism, like I've experienced it, you notice that people who have like a very dark skin, no matter where they come from, always report that they are bullied, ostracized, marginalized in their own communities. Skin lightening is not only very popular in Africa, it's also very popular like in Asia. I truly believe that when Black people express racism among themselves is through trying to dilute themselves. Like they're always trying to infuse whiteness among themselves.
Clap, clap, clap.
I want to study, for example, like this painting. The name of the painting is Redençao. I believe that the work, it was painted by someone called Botdushka. He was a white man, of course. In French, it translates to the redemption of Cham. And for people who don't know who Cham is, it's literally the myth placed in Genesis 9 that kind of like justifies slavery as a whole. It's a punishment that is God given. But in the painting, you see literally something that was projected onto Black people and Black people experience today. You have a Black woman, she's a grandmother, and that grandmother has a biracial child who's a woman. And that woman herself has just given birth to the baby of a white man. And that baby is white. That baby is white. And their baby is kind of placed as in position as a baby Jesus. And she herself, the biracial daughter, is seen like kind of like positioned as Mary. This painting is showing how the Black community wants for that clearance to happen, because it was past slavery, and people still to this day believe that when you have biracial babies, you are in fact doing good to your community because you are solving racism in a way. You're repairing racism. And not only that, but you are elevating the race. I am not the only person who heard like an African mother come to their daughter and say, I can't wait for you to have white children or just biracial children so that I can play with their hair. That is so common. That is also why now you have many people who kind of enjoy fetishizing others. That's why you have tweets like this one, who I find stupid and just an expression of colorism, because then again, now you have like the woman who's way lighter, she's not even Black. And then you have the Black man who doesn't really look like the most common Bantu man, you know, like he looks kind of Ghanaian to me, but whatever. And then you have the biracial child. It's the same thing to me, basically. People haven't changed. It's just evolved. The expressions have evolved. So to me, that is why I sincerely believe that expression of racism in the Black community exists, but it's just self-directed. It's always directed towards the self. And thus is even like it's fragmenting us even more. And that is why I want to make sure that people understand that there is nothing against the plan of someone who wants to erase the identity of Black women through just like saying that biracial people and people who look ambiguously Black are now Black people. It's meant to be that way. People have internalized the racism, the hatred, the exploitation so much for so long that they now are okay with that. So I think that that experience that I've had now 2 to 3 days before really shows that. And I believe that now if I'm ever put into that place again, I'm happy that I now know what I can say. What I would have wanted to say at that moment was not to continue the discussion, because I'm literally not meant to be the one who educates you. I'm not your nanny, you're projecting a trauma that I made the active and intentional decision not to reproduce. I don't know if I want to have children, but one thing I'm sure is that if the children are biracial, I'll let them know about all this trauma and all this history, because they have to be conscious of who they are, but they also have to understand that what's meant for them is to build a place for themselves and to discuss their nuances among themselves first. So yeah, you have to understand that people who are Black and ambiguously Black, we don't relate to white people. When we look at them, we don't have this feeling of like familiarity, because we are being attacked by their presence every day. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope that you liked it. And please leave me a comment if you like. If you want me to speak more on like the private subjects I've talked about in the video, please let me know. I would love to detail more what I think of this painting. I would love to just like talk more about those subjects, but I don't want it to be too broad. Let me know if that is something that you would like to hear more and like to listen to. And yeah, have a beautiful day.